Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy TriniFX here, back with another trade recap. Now today we had red folder news today. We got the Fed chair speaking at 9 and then 10 o'clock PMI. So we were looking forward to a bit of volatility. As we could see from yesterday's trading, price eventually traded higher, leaving behind some bullish fair value gaps. So initially I had this one marked off. We could see as market opened, price began to trade lower, inversing this bearish fair value gap and leaving behind a SIBI here. Price traded into it and just started to trade lower throughout the day. Well, the early morning period, we had midnight open here, which, as you know, that's when I start to look at the market. So market traded lower, 3 o'clock, came down, hit this gap here. Let me just draw it correctly for you. Right, so this is another 1 hour bullish fair value gap. Price traded down, didn't quite get to it, traded higher. So I was looking to see if price would trade into this 1 hour SIBI and send price lower. Yes, we had these levels further up, but every day we have to take what price gives us, analyze the market, and make some adjustments as we go along. Now, keeping in mind, we traded above the equilibrium of the dealing range, and we just closed above the 25% level here. So all in all, from market opened, it gave me a bearish bias for the day. So let's drop to a 15-minute chart so we could just refine a couple of things here and see exactly what price was giving us. So coming into the open here, well, remember we had this hourly fair value gap. Price actually traded into it 8:30, 8:45, and 9 o'clock. So I got to the market, or my charts I should say, around 9. I marked off my higher time frame 15-minute fair value gaps above and below price. Remember, we got this 1 hour SIBI holding. This other 1 hour SIBI was sending price lower. So coming to the chart, I'm seeing, okay, bearish PD areas are holding while bullish PD areas are being disrespected. So all in all, I would have liked price to trade higher at 9:30 back into this 15-minute fair value gap, because as you can see, we already tapped into it pre-New York open. So New York opened here and sent price lower. So I was watching price as price was trading lower, seeing if it would respect this 1 hour bullish fair value gap and could get down into the bottom half of this 15-minute fair value gap. So that's why I didn't really draw this higher up, because I knew it was there. I just put it on the chart so that you guys could have a visual. So eventually price reached down into the lower half of this 15-minute fair value gap, but closed within the hourly bullish fair value gap. So it was finding some level of support. So at that time, I dropped to my 1-minute chart, and here we could have framed a setup. So remember, as I said, initially my bias was short, right? But I did not see an entry coming off of this bearish 15-minute SIBI here. So we saw price trade into it at 7.19 and began to slowly displace lower. At 9.25, we saw this big displacement candle inversing this BISI here on a 1-minute chart. So it traded back into it and started to trade lower. So market opened, we had this back and forth. So we just need to let the market play out. And as price began to trade lower, keep in mind this is the 1 hour bullish fair value gap here, 15-minute bullish fair value gap here, the lower half of it. As price traded into it, I marked off my first presented fair value gap, which is this SIBI here. We saw price trade into it and then began to trade lower, however, could not break beyond this low here. So we saw price staying within this range, back and forth, finding resistance at this first presented fair value gap and some support on this 15-minute fair value gap. So I stayed patient. So if we looked at what was taking place on the 1-minute chart, we had price trading into the 15-minute. And remember, I told you it respected this 1 hour because it wasn't able to close below the 1 hour. First presented fair value gap was keeping price, finding some resistance here. So if we take a look at what's taking place on the 1-minute chart as price and the candles are printing, we could see accumulation, manipulation, and what we could have anticipated was the distribution leg to clear the liquidity above the original consolidation on a 1-minute time frame. However, we needed price to continue with this story. So as price traded higher, closed above the first presented, traded back down, then when this candle closed and formed this 1-minute fair value gap, I was waiting to see if price would just rally higher or would give me an entry. So as this candle at 9:49 traded into this 1-minute fair value gap, we could see it closed above it. It didn't even close within this 1-minute fair value gap. So that told me bullish momentum was in play. So what do I wait for? I waited for a confirmation entry. Yes, you could have taken a long here, right? You probably would have gotten a better risk to reward. But I was anticipating price to go higher, but I wanted a confirmation entry simply because my bias was bearish for the day or the morning at least. So once price traded above the candle that traded into this 1-minute fair value gap, I entered my long, put my stop right below the candle's wick there, and I was targeting this buy side on top here, right? So keeping in mind, this is like a couple minutes before PMI news dropped. So it's a little risky. We could see price consolidating, and I was waiting, right? So once this candle at 9:59 displaced higher, I exited for a 1% return on the account. So I went for a 1-to-1 because I didn't want to be in the trade when the news dropped, right? Especially PMI news. So when I reached a 1-to-1, I took this long off the table and I waited to see where price was heading to. I was waiting to see if I could have gotten another long to continue price, or if price would respect this 15-minute SIBI and trade lower. So what do we see? Price traded above this SIBI, inversing it. So that's why the color has changed, and we found it was just finding some support here. It was able to trade higher and clear the buy side here. So this was the initial target of this long. So I waited to see price went up. However, price could not break through the consequent encroachment of this fair value gap here. So it closed below, which had me looking to see, okay, is price willing to continue higher this time, or can we anticipate a retracement? So if we scrub across here, we can see that this low traded into this bullish fair value gap here and sent price higher, clearing out the liquidity above this high. So I'm monitoring the candles as they print. We traded lower, did not break through, still finding support on this inversion fair value gap here and this bullish fair value gap. Traded higher, then traded lower. When this candle printed like this, I paid a little more attention to see what price was doing, because ultimately if price inversed this gap here, this initial SIBI, I dragged it across. If price could have closed below, then we could have seen a retracement into about 50% of this range or even lower. So once price closed below, I marked off a 1-minute fair value gap. As price was trading back into the lower half of this inversion fair value gap, that's where I went short I put my stop above this high because this was the highest candle in this consolidation move here. I put my stop there, and initially I was targeting the low. However, I marked off where 2R would be and then the low. So as price traded down, we can see that it found some support on this bullish 1 minute fair value gap. So if you guys can't see what's happening, every time a bullish, well, not every time, you have to look and see. Once a bullish fair value gap is traded below, most times it becomes resistance, and vice versa. If a bearish fair value gap is traded above, it can become support. So if you look at my last video, you will see that that's what I spoke about. So as price traded lower, it found some support to send price back up. So I was anticipating that price could probably come back up here because it did not tap into the 1 minute fair value gap. All it did was trade back into the lower half of this SIBI or inversion fair value gap, and that's where I went short. So I was leaving room for price to make a retracement, and it did, and then price traded lower. Once price formed this 1 minute SIBI, we could see it closed below, making this an inversion fair value gap. I took some partials and I began to trail my stop, and price ran lower, and on the recording you will see I took some more partials and I moved my stop right above the high of this inversion fair value gap, which ultimately I got stopped out. Price did trade lower and ultimately traded higher for the day. So this trade ran for 2.16 risk to reward, and I took my partials along the way. So this was the trading recap for today, guys. I was able to catch a long on my personal funds. This short was on my funded account. Let me just show you the execution here. So this is the execution on my live account. As I said, price traded into this BC, traded higher. Once it closed above there, I took my long, was aiming for this high. However, as this candle closed, because it was 1 minute until news, I exited the trade. So this was my long trade for today on my live account, and this was the short that I took on my funded account. I hope you found some value in this trading recap, guys. Let's continue to study price together. Leave a comment. It's really amazing to see the algorithm in play and what PD arrays get respected, what time they get respected, and how price forms. It's really, really a technical science, and I'm just sharing my journey with you all. Subscribe to the channel, check out the other live executions, and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.